Welcome to Mr. V Teaching Math. In this session, we're looking at the classification of triangles. First, let's think about triangles. This is a triangle. What makes it a triangle? What things do all triangles have? Well, there are three things. They have three sides and three angles. And that is how we go about classifying triangles. We can classify them by their angles, and we can classify them by their sides. And it's important to realize that there are two classifications for every single triangle. This triangle has two different ways of classifying it. Keep that in mind. Now, in the textbook series that we work with in our class, this is the best classification method. Now, if you look at the top here, these are actually something similar to what we've learned before. We have the acute. Any triangle in which all three angles are less than 90 degrees. The right triangle in which a single angle is 90 degrees. And then we have the obtuse, or big fat triangle, in which a single angle is greater than 90 degrees. This is the classification due to angles. So, if I take my earlier example, and I look at this shape here, and I look at these three things, and I go, it does not have a right angle, it does not have one angle greater than 90 degrees. Therefore, it is an acute triangle. You'll notice that these are very closely related to the classification of angles. Now, the part that is newer for us. Here we have the classification due to sides. Here you can look at the three different sides. If it has two sides that are equal, which automatically causes these two angles to be equal, it is isosceles. If either of those are true, if it has two equal angles, it automatically has two equal sides. If it has two equal sides, it will have two equal angles. This is known as the equilateral triangle, in which all three sides are exactly the same size and all three angles are exactly the same size, which, by the way, means that anytime you have an equilateral triangle, these three angles will always be the same. Just take 180 divided by 3 and you know what these three angles are. And this is scalene, S-C-A-L-E-N-E. There are no equal sides and no equal angles. And that will be what this one is. It is scalene. It is an acute scalene triangle. And you can do that for all of your triangles. You can have two of these names. You can have, except that some of them don't work together. For instance, a right-angled triangle cannot be equilateral because those angles are automatically all something else already. So these two are incompatible. But you could have a right-angled isosceles, and you can also have a right-angled scalene. You can have an obtuse scalene. You can have an obtuse isosceles. You cannot have an obtuse equilateral because these cannot be bigger than what they are already. And you can have an acute isosceles, you can have an acute scalene, and you can have an acute equilateral. So there are many combinations of these 6. Some of them don't work, but many of them do. Now I do have one other textbook that has another classification system. It is almost exactly the same. I don't like it as much because it doesn't include as much information, but it does have something that's not in the other ones, and that's this one right here. The equiangular triangle. All angles are equal. And that happens to be this and this. The equilateral is equiangular. Not very common, but it does exist, and you need to be aware of it. But that's how to classify different kinds of triangles.